Okay, what's going on, everybody? My name is Mangg. Welcome back to Hanging with Mangg. We're playing a little bit of Withering Waves here.
Leave it to me.
Now, to be clear, I have not been playing Withering Waves, really. I just happened to fire it up for this so that I didn't just keep repeating every week for Hanging with Mangg playing Dominion 6, which is what I have been playing every day. Just constantly. Just forever. I think it's getting to the point where it might be my favorite game. But that's usually the thing with, like, the favorite game. The favorite game, it depends a lot on what I'm, like, really obsessed with at the moment. Like, when I'm really into Cataclysm, it's like, well, of course, Cataclysm is my favorite game of all time. And then when I'm really into RimWorld, it's like, well, how could RimWorld not be my favorite game? Or I get really into Factorio, and it's like, yes, Factorio is just amazing. It's got to be my favorite. Or even, like, Pathfinder, Wrath of the Righteous. Like, yeah, I could just play this game forever. It's so good. It's gotta be my favorite. But I don't know, man. Dominions is hit pretty fucking hard. And I know it's really not for everybody. And I would have guessed for sure that it wasn't going to be for me. You know, having just looked at it, and I had played it when I bought it like a year and a half ago or whatever, and it just was like, yeah, that's cool, I guess. But then once it all clicks, it just fucking clicks. I'm thinking about playing it right now. But anyways, I just got back from seeing 28 years later.
Efficiency above all.
Which came out almost 28 years later as a sequel. And I went with some friends, and one of them had never seen the first two. And I have not seen the first two in probably like 10, 12 years. Something like that. Like, it's been an eternity. But I was like, they're not going to release a movie, a sequel, you know, this many years later, and expect people to have seen the first two. Like, it's obviously going to stand alone. I mean, and you're not going to go in not knowing anything about what the type of movie it is, so you know it's about zombies. And that's kind of it. You know, the first, like, half hour, I would say, around about, was awesome. Like, I was really... It was really exciting. There were some really good scenes in the first half hour. Really intense stuff. It was obviously... It's very stylistic. It's a very stylistic movie with the way the editing goes and things like that. Like, it's not a conventional, just like... you know... The movie execs want a new zombie movie. Just get it out there. Like, there's definitely style to it. For good or bad, depending on the perspective of the viewer. But yeah, the first half hour, really exciting, really good. And then after that, it became just kind of good, I would say. It's not a bad movie at all. I mean, I liked it. I'm definitely interested in seeing the sequel that's coming out in, like, January.
I'll return the favor tenfold.
But it was, you know, I don't know what I expected, really. I guess I expected it to be kind of based on the trailer that I saw, you know, with like the Boots poem being spoken, and really just intense and dark, and like, holy shit, this movie's gonna be balls to the wall. I would say by and large, it's not a balls to the wall movie. It's definitely more emotional than I expected, especially like the second half. you know, I thought it was going to be a movie about Aaron Taylor Johnson kind of like, you know, being a part of this little community that lives for years amongst zombies, and we just kind of get to see the uniqueness of how they live with infected, you know, over the years. And then he's gonna have to do some, you know, typical heroic shit, going to town on infected left and right. You know, I don't know, and a lot of bows and arrows, and I don't know, you know, cool stuff like that. And just to kind of, and maybe, you know, showing the sort of typical thing of like, well, zombies are bad, but, you know, humans are even worse, you know, and just kind of showing how humans, after 28 years of living amongst zombies, are not that, you know, they're not that different in some ways. But it's not that. And I guess, you know, subverts expectations, and that's always good. Because everything I just said is kind of like what you'd exactly expect from movie execs demanding a sequel to 28 Weeks Later. But yeah, I mean, it's a lot about just like this kid and his mom, just kind of on a quest, and it gets kind of emotional, and there's some like symbolism
No hesitation.
about, you know, death and life and things like that. And then Rafe Fiennes is there, and I don't want to spoil anything, but it gets emotional and it gets kind of poignant, I suppose, is how I would describe it. I mean, there's definitely some gore. There's some gnarly kills, 100%. There's a lot of zombie dick. You know, if that's a concern or the opposite of a concern for you. So it's definitely got some dark moments and some hefty gore, but honestly not nearly as much as I expected. I mean, to each their own, I mean, I guess. But, you know, when I see a zombie movie these days, like a new zombie movie comes out, it's not bad if it's emotional or something like that. Train to Busan.
Leave it to me.
You know, the ending of that is very emotional. But, you know, I want to see just, like, the chaos. And I want to just see... You know, I don't want to go see, like, fucking dead bodies or... that's not... Warm Bodies, that's the name of it. You know, I don't want to see zombie... It's hard to say. It's hard to say what I want, because I'm not that into zombies anymore, and I think that's true probably for a lot of the public. It's tough to release a new zombie big budget movie these days, because we've kind of seen a lot of stuff. We've experienced a lot of zombie stuff. It's tough to come up with new original spins on the genre. And so I think for that, 20 years later did pretty well in just kind of subverting expectations and telling a story that wasn't just like the typical kind of zombie apocalypse fare, you know. I don't think it's going to resonate with everybody, and I wouldn't certainly put it among like my top 3 zombie movies or anything like that, but it was pretty solid. And it didn't really overstay its welcome too much, so that's always nice. Unlike the latest Mission Impossible.
Comes with the job, I guess.
So, you know, I'd recommend it if you're into zombie movies. Because, I mean, it's still definitely a zombie movie. You're going to see people's spines getting ripped out and, you know, things like that. But just, you know, keep in mind that it's not super conventional, and there is going to be some slow, poignant, emotional scenes in there, and it's not like just constant chaos and stuff.
Perfect wind to glide.
Anyways, that's that. I don't usually talk about movies on here because I save that for Two Brothers. But I just got back from seeing it, so why not? Alright, so this week on this channel we had... let's see, we had RimWorld with RimWorld. We had Elden Ring the Convergence. I don't know if I actually uploaded any RimWorld this week, but we had Elden Ring Convergence, which is just about done. And we had Dominion 6, which is nowhere near done because I have like 25 videos and I'm going to record more as soon as I'm done with this because I can't stop. It's a sickness. Because now I'm playing with the Warhammer mod, so I'm playing as the Skaven, and oh man, I'm going to play as the Cultists of Nurgle, and oh, it's going to be crazy. Yeah, so there'll be a lot more Dominions. Sorry if that doesn't interest you at all, but it sure as hell interests me. After Elden Ring Convergence, I think the same thing happened with Anomaly, where I was uploading a bunch, or I recorded a bunch, and then the DLC came out and I had a bunch to upload, and then I didn't want to upload more because I knew that I was going to upload the new DLC when it came out. So I just don't want a constant flood of RimWorld content. But now, you know, we got the new DLC coming out in like a month. So I don't know. But I have a lot of other stuff, as I rattled off last week. So, I don't know what I'll upload. Something. It'll be something. We'll see. But Dominions will definitely get out there just because I just love it, and I just want to share it with the world as much as I can at the moment.
Banish all vice.
Yeah, so that's that. And Lego and I are continuing to play Dominions co-op, Two Brothers Play. We're doing it again on Wednesday. No one is interested. No one is popping into chat these days. We are streaming now dual on YouTube and Twitch, so we're hoping to maybe grab some extra viewers there. But I know we're not super interesting because we have a lot of dead air and things like that. But you know, we enjoy just playing together. And it's like, why not stream it? Yeah, everyone streams. We may as well. Maybe someone will get some enjoyment out of it, and it's not like I pay by the megabyte for uploading or anything, so why not? Over on the exploring series, we had It wasn't the implicit door. That was last time. It was the one with the blizzard. It was the one with the blizzard and the Anafabula. And it had a name, Fall Forever. That's what it was. Yes. I didn't really look at any comments on that. But I did see... I think that... Well, I misread... Well, I think I miswrote, actually. At the end when I mentioned the Anafabula and the SCP-2747 or whatever. And I called it... As above, so below. Which is the normal phrase, but that one specifically is the opposite. It's as below, so above, I believe. And I said the normal phrase instead of the SCP name. So I think I saw a comment mentioning that, but you know, I'm not gonna re-upload a video just for that. I think I made some other mistake in there that I'm not quite sure. seem to recall earlier in the week I was like, oh, I made 2 mistakes in one video.
Wind guide.
But now I can't remember. So, inconsequential. This week I worked on Not All Gods Decompose. 4612, I believe. First one in the Hecaton Kyries cycle. Now, that one specifically, because I already got a Patreon comment saying that I pronounced Hecaton Kyries incorrectly. Because in the video, I don't pronounce it Hecaton Kyries. And I can't even remember how I pronounce it now, but I did look. I mean, sometimes I'm dumb and I don't look up pronunciation because I'm just like, well, this is what it looks like. This has got to be how it's pronounced. And sometimes I'm right, and sometimes I'm horribly wrong.
Evils be gone.
But this one I definitely looked up, because I mentioned last week how I knew I was going to have to look up the pronunciation, and I want to be sure. What was frustrating is that I could not find a consensus, which is very unusual. Most words you can generally find a consensus, or it's like a lot of like mythological terms have been used in like an anime or something, or a game, something like that, and it's easy to just be like, okay, well, I'll just take their pronunciation, because I'll assume they did the research already, and if anyone's, you know, usually that works out. This one, I couldn't find like anything. Couldn't find like a good source. It's not a term that gets thrown around a whole lot. Apparently it was used in a God of War game as a boss. I don't remember which one now. But they don't say it in game. It's just like a title or something that refers to the boss. So that was useless. I found one video on TikTok from a Greek guy specifically talking about the Hecaton Kyries with like a Greek accent, and he said it and it sounded very Greek, and I was like, this sounds pretty good, and I'm not gonna be able to get this exactly right, but that sounds like what it should be. But as always, I don't know why I do this. People don't care about the proper pronunciation of a word.
Leave it to me.
I mean, most people don't. People care about the common pronunciation of a word. And I remember getting into this a lot when I did the Ouroboros cycle. I think like the first part, maybe it was the second part. I don't remember which one. And that was specifically with the entity named Abaddon. Because Abaddon is by far the more common pronunciation. But I was like, well, wait a minute, let me look it up. What's the proper pronunciation? Because I like to be proper. And the proper, or, you know, more proper, like Hebrew or whatever it was, is Abaddon. I was like, okay, well, I'll just use Abaddon. And then I got just loads of comments saying, it's pronounced Abaddon. Don't you know anything, you stupid idiot? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with your brain? Why doesn't it work properly? And there's just, you know, once something's out there, there's, you know, you can leave comments, so you could pin a comment, but there's just no erasing it unless I redid the video. And there's, you know, there's plenty of examples. Pronunciation has always been just like probably the most annoying thing about being a YouTuber. Like this kind of YouTuber. And I think during like the Lord of the Rings days, I banned the word pronunciation from my channel. Because I was just sick of getting comments over and over and over about pronunciation. Especially for Lord of the Rings, where it's like, well, A, it's all just like fictional fantasy words, but B, like Tolkien was like a linguist, you know, so he had correct pronunciations, and I made sure to look up all the correct pronunciations and use them. But that doesn't matter, because again, people just care about either A, the common pronunciation, or B, the pronunciation that they've had in their head forever. And I remember when I did the Final Fantasy VI video. That was kind of wild because I, played Final Fantasy VI was one of my first video games I ever played. So that's been in my head for decades. And there are many names and terms in that game that, my brother and I would just say, and we just, we shared a language of the game and of pronunciations without having any idea of what it actually should be pronounced like, and everyone was like that. And so like Narshe is just, it was always just Narshe, and if I say Narshe to Lego, he'll know exactly what I'm referring to, the starting mining town in Final Fantasy VI. But that's not how it's really pronounced. That's not how it's really meant to be pronounced. Because when I did that video, I was like, I want to know all the correct pronunciations as close to like what Squaresoft intended. And so I went and looked at all the Japanese pronunciations of all these things. And that's obviously not completely foolproof, but it seemed pretty clear. I mean, I could go check right now. For Narshian specifically, because that was one that I remember. So, so this one was Narushe, I believe, is how it would be pronounced in Japanese. I mean, I'm elongating it, but Narushe. And so in the video, I pronounced it as Narshe. Now, I don't know. I didn't really read many comments on that video because I don't tend to do that these days. But I'm sure I got plenty of comments. And I'm pretty sure the pronunciation is still banned as a word on my channel. So again, it's hard to say. But like I didn't lash out and be like, no, it's pronounced Narshe, I refuse. It's like, no, if that's how it's meant to be pronounced, that's how I'll do it. There were some other ones in that video. I mean, I had to look up like everything because I just wasn't sure. So, I mean, Celis is how I pronounce it. That's how Lego and I pronounce it. In Japanese, it would be Serisu. And it's like, I don't know exactly how you... Ceres? I think that's pretty... Celis? I mean, it seems pretty close. But again, I had to look up all of them. And then, like... I mean, Terra is an easy pronunciation, right? But then in Japanese, she's known as Tina. And I really am glad they changed that to Terra, because I think that's just such a badass name rather than Tina. I don't know. Maybe Tina just has sort of a different connotation in Japan as a name. We're getting really off topic here. What am I talking about? Right, so Hecate Kyries. Yeah, that as far as I can tell. And again, I couldn't really find like any definitive pronunciation that's even like this is the common pronunciation, of Hecate Kyries. Think at some point so the AI overview that they have now, which seems to pull from like how to pronounce, which is all just already like AI pronunciations. So it's all just looping back on itself of AI here. But the AI overview says it's pronounced Hecatonchires. Exactly like that. And then here's a post, a Reddit thread on the Final Fantasy 14 subreddit talking about the pronunciation of Hecatonchires. Well, actually, I mean, they're talking about all sorts of different names, but Hecatonchires is one that's brought up. And this one says Hecatonchures. But then someone seems to correct them and say it's more pronounced Hekatonchires. And then there was a different... I thought there was a different, like... So this was the TikTok video that I saw. There was Greek guy says it. So listen to this. He's saying like Hekatochires or something like that. And I was like, okay, it sounds pretty correct and pretty Greek, but how the fuck would I know, really? And so, again, it's like, why do I care? No one cares. Just say Hekatonchires. Most people don't know what the word is anyways, but the few that do probably are just going to be more familiar with Hekatonchires. Okay, so this is howtopronounce.com.
Hekatonchires.
That says Hekatonchires. And that doesn't sound like AI. That sounds like an actual person saying Hekatonchires. How does that person know how it's pronounced? I have no idea. This is why I hate pronunciation. I don't really care. I don't like the comments that I don't read anyways. That's where it is. That's where we're at. I don't know. It's all just a nightmare. Here's Hekatonchires is what this site says, with the emphasis on ton instead of the chi. And this one also says Hekatonchires, emphasis on tong, specifically noting, hey, emphasis is often placed on the second syllable. Instead of chi, so Hekatonchires instead of Hekatonchires. I don't think there's a fucking human being on the earth that knows how this word is pronounced. But that doesn't stop people from leaving comments. So, anyways, yeah. It's not like I mentioned it over and over in the video. Like, it comes up once right at the end. But there's gonna be comments. And there's always, you know, those Poindexters out there. Anyways, that's that. It's a pretty short video. It's like 20 something minutes. It's pretty short. And then next week I think is more neutralized SCPs. I believe that was the winner. So it'll be another, 40 to 50 minute one. I usually shoot for 5. I think 5 is a good number for those compilations.
Leave it to me.
Yeah, and then time marked is on. Yeah, I mean, we're just kind of doing standard SCP stuff right now. Now, there is a new Murphy Law article. And it is a big boy. It would be 2 pretty lengthy videos or 3 kind of just nicely sized videos. But that's 3 weeks of one Murphy Law article, and you either are into Murphy Law or you're not. And I didn't put it on the poll right away because it was just like, I like Murphy Law a lot. I know plenty of people do like the videos on it, but it's pretty lengthy, and there's a lot of voice acting. And I didn't read it all through. I skimmed so far, and I saw there is a section where he kind of gets knocked out of his Murphy Law persona again, and he just speaks normally for a while. And that's trickier because the grounding aspect of those articles for my videos is Murphy Law and his voice. It's always a recognizable, you always know who's speaking when he's speaking. But I'm not really that good of a voice actor, so I can't do all these other voices. Now, what you might say is, Mangg, why don't you just get some other voice actors? I could. That will please some people, that will displease other people. People that just click on my videos to hear my voice and, like, fall asleep or something. And then suddenly they have to hear someone completely different speaking for who knows how long. It's, you know, it's not an ego thing. It's just, I did this early on in the career where I did some things, did different sections of a video or things like that where it wasn't me speaking or there was other audio, and it's just no one seemed to really like it that much. And even with the recent Substation 9 video, people seem to generally want just me speaking the whole time, even if it,
He lasts evermore.
I thought, just kind of made the video worse. So I'm not sure. It's gonna be hard not to do Murphy Law, even if it is a big thing. I do wish it was not as big, to be honest, and that's rare for me to say because I love the big articles. But I think just like some 30-minute bite-sized Murphy Law adventures might be better. Sort of like, well, I mean, Lord Blackwood I wouldn't mind as much, I guess, if it was like 2 hours of just Blackwood's journals. But that's because it's so easy for me to make those videos. If there was a separate site, like a branch of the SCP wiki, and it was all just Blackwood tales, I would just switch my channel to that. Because I love them, and they're really easy to make, because I don't have to summarize anything. I just have to write and then narrate in one narrated voice.
A decent challenge. Tranquility.
Speaking of not writing and just narrating, what I would like to do...
Leave it to me.
Well, I want to do more Lovecraft readings in general, obviously. There's still plenty of those stories, and most of them now, like the lesser-known ones, are kind of... I say hit or miss, but really mostly miss as far as viewership is concerned, compared to, like, the big, well-known stories. Like, I'm not going to top Shadow over Innsmouth in view count or anything. But what I would really like to do at some point is cover the Dream Quest of Unknown Kadat. It's kind of Lovecraft's magnum opus. It's pretty basically like his biggest work, and it's not cosmic horror, really. It's almost more like cosmic fantasy. You know, it's this whole dream world and this extended kind of adventure maybe is a little strong, but you know, it's a dream-like tale in this kind of fantasy-esque world. But it would be pretty lengthy. I mean, it would be like 5 hours. And that's pretty long. But I would really like to cover it. And I think the only way I'm really going to do it is if I just start recording and just do like... If I could record just like 30 minutes a week, then in 10 weeks, you know, 2.5 months, I'd have it all recorded. And that's basically all the work. I mean, I don't put much art into those videos and stuff. It wouldn't be that big of a problem. And then I'd have it. But it's tough to motivate myself to do that, because that kind of, you know, I record obviously on a pretty regular schedule every Friday, and you know, I kind of have to get situated. I have a different computer that I go to, and I have to make sure the house is like as quiet as possible during that time, and you know, it's always the same. So doing that like regularly multiple times every week for 2.5 months. It's just tough to motivate yourself to do that, especially for something that probably isn't going to get obscene amount of views. But it's something I really want to have done, you know. So I just gotta kick myself in the ass and just start recording. Once I start, it gets a bit easier. Because then I'm like, okay, this is kind of a thing now. I'm committed. And then every time I record, it just chinks a little bit away at this monstrosity of a video. But yeah, I'd really like to do that.
Leave it to me.
So as for Murphy Law, it's going to get added to the polls at some point. And it's one of those things that's just like, it's a lot of work. It's going to be a lot of voice acting. It's a lot of stuff that I'm not really good with. You know, I almost wish it was just somebody else's channel and I was just guest starring as the voice of Murphy Law. So that's all I had to do, but that's not the way it works. No one's gonna do it but me. So, yeah, at some point.
Like this? Chi lasts evermore.
Anyways, moving on. So we did some D&D on Thursday, and we actually finished up the Evils of Ilmire. It's definitely a truncated campaign. They didn't get to... I mean, we played for quite a while. It was good, a really good number of sessions, I think, and it had a conclusion. They didn't get to many of the dungeons, and they didn't... But it's like, you know, I don't think many groups are going to do a 100% run of Evils of Ilmire, so it is what it is. And they all had some good times with it. It was pretty much just like they knew where the final headquarters was. And so the session was just like getting to the final headquarters, going in there, and just putting a stop to this once and for all. But as usual, they just do boneheaded things after boneheaded things. Like, I rolled a random encounter on the way there when they were somewhat close to the area, and they didn't know exactly where the headquarters was. And the random encounter that I rolled was a few cultists sort of fleeing or running through the area with some captives in tow. And I'm like, wow, they got really lucky with this random roll, because now they can just follow these cultists straight to the lair. You know, that's a very classic kind of movie scenario. They'll definitely do that. Nope. Lego immediately charged forward on his horse because he said this is what his, you know, god demands. And he charges in and they kill all the cultists. And as soon as he committed to the charge, I was like, okay, I mean, you're committed to this, but, you know, really, you don't know where the headquarters is exactly. You could have just followed them there instead of attacking them immediately and risking the captives' lives as part of this melee, but yeah.
Disperse.
Fortunately, they did manage to, one of the cultists did flee with one of the captives, because he kind of took her hostage. He had a knife to her throat and stuff, and so they tried yelling at him to let her go and blah, 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 and it's just like, you idiots, I'm really giving you an opportunity here to follow this guy back to his lair. The cultist is going to be really boneheaded about this. So eventually they were like, okay, well, we'll follow him. And so they followed him to his lair. And they got into the fight with the guards at the front. And they were like giant hounds they had. And you know, the artificer turned out to be really kind of pretty clutch and kind of game-breaking for this sort of scenario. Well, any sort of OSR scenario, really, because she had these fume flasks, you know, that could just be filled with basically like any kind of sleep gas or paralysis gas, poison gas, you know, any sort of gas. I left it pretty flexible because I figured these guys aren't that creative, but honestly, just like, you know, the book mentions sleep and I think paralysis and stuff and poison. And that's enough. Throwing like a paralysis gas into a room or a sleep gas. I think sleep specifically is pretty potent because the gas fades away after like 10 minutes, but the sleep lasts longer than that. And so they just started solving like basically every encounter by just throwing sleep or paralysis gas in there.
Fine.
And it's like, it's fine, but it's just kind of a personal thing. Like when I play, I don't like to, I always think of the line from like,
That's just a scratch.
I think it was Ocean's 12, where they ask him like if he can do like the EMP thing again. And he's just like, you know, you already did that one. You don't do the same trick again. You go on to the next one. It's like that's always how I feel. It's like you can't repeat the same exact gimmick again and again. Like that's no fun. But they need all the help they can get, so I guess it's fine. So they get into the headquarters, and well, one of the guys at the front gets away. He runs inside right away, and because he made his save, you know, on the paralysis. So he runs inside. He's like, "They're here, you know." And so it's like, okay, they know you're coming. And so I changed a bunch of stuff with the way that the dungeon was set up, because they all knew that the adventurers were coming in. These were hardened killers, you know. They've taken down multiple Fear Spawn. They've taken down Ransidious. I mean, these are very dangerous individuals that are coming in here to finish the job. So the cultists were not going to fuck around and be like, okay, you two go get them. You know, that sort of bullshit. It's like, no, we're going to gather everybody up. We're going to take all these hostages we have, and we're not going to fuck around at all. So most of the place was basically just kind of empty, you know? Hey, this is not a stealth approach. This is an alerted base, you know? So most of it was empty because they were all conglomerating in the one room that had all the captives in it. So they were all hiding behind captives in this one room, crossbows pointed at the door to that room, just waiting for these dumbasses to kick the door in. And it took a while for them to get there because they went on they heard a bunch of voices behind a door, or like, you know, hushed voices or something like that, just to kind of give them a heads up that there's a bunch of people in there. But they went a different way. They ended up finding basically the source of these little brain worms that the cultist has been using to infect people and take over their minds. And the brain worms live in like this pool of black liquid, and they feast on the brain matter of this like mummified hill giant head that's like still alive or something. It was pretty creepy. It was pretty weird. And they didn't want to go in the liquid, and they decided to just use magic missile on the mummified head a couple times, and that caused all the worms to like rise up and charge forward. And so they ran from all the worms because there was 45 worms. And they kind of juked them and pretty much locked them into a section of the dungeon. And then they were like, okay, we're going to go for that room with all the voices. And Lego, he was not having a good day that day. He was kind of getting fed up with everything, as usual. So he just like kicked the door in. Oh, no. I'm sorry. That's not what happened. they had the halfling sneak in and, like, slowly open the door just to peek in. It's like, okay, because like I said, there were definitely cultists all standing there waiting with crossbows loaded at the door. And she took offense. She was like, I was sneaking. And it's like, yeah, but the door isn't sneaking. They can see the door move. You can't hide that. They're all watching the door. They all know you're here. You're stomping around running from worms and stuff. So, she took, like, I don't know if she took a shot. Actually, I rolled abysmally poorly on all those shots. Because she was just kind of peeking around the door. So she had a lot of coverage. And then, of course, she threw in her paralysis flask. And she knocked down and out basically all but, like, a couple of the people in there. And there was 12 cultists. There's like 11 cultists and 12 captive civilians. So, knocked out all but a couple. And then they didn't know what to do because the gas doesn't fade for like 9 minutes. And I shouldn't have told them that it takes 9 minutes, but I should have told them. I mean, well, it's her character. She should know the mechanics, but it's 2d6 minutes that the gas lasts. So I should have rolled and then just not told them, but I told them. But it didn't matter. Because they couldn't figure out what to do with the gas. They wanted to know how the gas worked. I think at one point someone asked, like, do you have to breathe it in or something? And I think I said that it's based on skin contact. Maybe that's unfair. Maybe it should have all been, like, breathing based. The book didn't really specify. It is called a fume flask. So you'd assume perhaps all based on breathing. And maybe that was a poor call. But I went with skin-based for paralysis, and, if it was sleeping, it's going to be breathing, and maybe poison is breathing, but I don't know. I made the call, and that's what it is. And so, like, well, we can't go in there for 9 minutes. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Blah, 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 blah. And so they just kind of like, okay, we wait. And so they basically just completely nullified it. They waited the 9 minutes. The paralysis lasted 7 rounds, which is like 70 seconds, give or take. So by the time they went back in there and opened the door, obviously everyone was back up, and they were behind the captives again. Crossbows were pointed at the door, same thing. They were like, what the fuck? We're still alive. What's happened? Blah, blah, blah. And so Lego's like, he's getting more and more upset by all this, so he just kicks in the door and runs in the room, and he takes the crossbow bolts, and I happen to roll 2 crits on the 4 crossbow bolts that I shot. And he took just like 18 damage and immediately went down. And so then he just like got up from the table and went to go eat food. So the rest of them then just, without him there to like give them some tactical guidance in combat, it was all just basically, okay, I walk up and I swing my sword. No major exploits, no minor exploits, no magic spells were cast, no abilities were used of any kind, no finesse, no bottleneck strategies, nothing. Like, the bottleneck strategy is so... It's one of the oldest fucking military tactics in history. I just don't get these people. I just can't relate at all. I just cannot relate at all. So, they all died during the final battle. They did manage to kill out the other... They killed the other cultist leader, Virica. So it wasn't a total loss, and the cult would obviously probably break up after that point without most of their members and any clear leadership. But they didn't kill the Fear Mother. And so the cult went away, and, things died down for a long time. Ilmair eventually maybe got repopulated, although it's got a really bad history, and they killed most of the population. So maybe it just gets swept aside, and that region just becomes wild for many years until eventually, the Fear Mother gets discovered again or something like that, a new cult forms, and history repeats itself. They didn't do the worst. They made it to the final dungeon. They killed the 2 cult leaders. It could have been a lot worse of a performance, but yeah, not spectacular, and I don't think anyone was cheering at the end of it. But what are you gonna do? That was it. That was the end. And so then we had a discussion about, like, what do we want to play next? What does anyone feel like playing? Blah, blah, blah. Do we want more Tales of Argosa? Do we want another thing like this? Or do we want something completely different? And the general consensus, everyone kind of has some opinion, but mostly it's just like, they just want me to run whatever I feel like running, because obviously I care the most. And so I went back and forth a bit personally, and I did order a printed copy of Castles in Tillin just through one of those sites that will just print out a PDF that you send them and they'll bind it for you and stuff, because I'm not paying $75 to get it shipped from Hungary, and I already bought the PDF, so it's something I could just do myself, obviously, but I'll have them do it for $17 with shipping included. Like, that's a pretty great price. It's certainly worth it, especially because I don't even have, like, a coil binding machine or whatever. I was like, okay, probably should just do Castles in Tillin with Tales of Argosa. They know kind of how to play Tales of Argosa. They kind of all liked this campaign. Yeah. But then 13th Age 2nd Edition keeps calling to me. And the more I look at the rule books for that and everything, it's just like, I think this would be kind of fun too, and just really loose, and not, like, you don't even track money, you're not tracking your survival, you're not tracking traveling and travel rolls and exploration, and you're meant to get into exciting heroic combat and do exciting heroic things, and you're doing montage shit, and it's just like, it seems like a better fit for this group that's not too bright, and we can just do some montages once in a while, and then, like, their rolling there doesn't matter that much, and, like, their bad ideas aren't that terrible, and they're just more combat oriented. Yeah, it's gonna have miniatures, and we're gonna have maps on Foundry and stuff like that to look at, and they're just kind of expected to do combat. But at the end of the day, it's like, I've given them 1,000 opportunities to really do clever things and appreciate clever playstyles, and they just continually flounder. So it's like, yeah, I probably should just do 13th Age as kind of like a complete 180 on this on the style of play. And I was like, what should I run then? And I started thinking about Curse of Strahd, because I know that's like the biggest, most popular D&D thing, but honestly, the tone just doesn't really fit. And I don't own Curse of Strahd, and I was like, I don't know. And then I looked, and I have my copy of Storm King's Thunder that I bought years and years ago, and it's been sitting on my desk for months, back when I first was thinking about running some other campaign. I was like, fuck it, I own this. Why don't I just run Storm King's Thunder with 13th Age 2nd Edition? And that's, I think, what we're going to do. I've not read it. I love RPGs. I mean, that should be pretty obvious to anyone that's watched this channel. Like, I fucking love playing RPGs. I'm okay DMing RPGs. One thing I really don't care for much is reading RPG rulebooks is okay. Generally, not my favorite thing. I do like reading, like, the magic sections and reading about a bunch of spells and stuff. That I like. But reading, especially, like, modules, and even more so full campaign books, oh my god. Like, I've never experienced just, like, ennui or just like a feeling of slogging through when outside of reading RPG rulebook or campaign books. Like I'll read like one paragraph about a room and it's like okay, and then I'll like alt tab or or just like look away and it's like oh okay. Like it's really a struggle for me to get through a campaign book like this. And that's why I kind of liked Evils of Ilmire. I didn't really read through the whole thing because it was so much just piecemeal of like okay, they're going to this location, I just have to open this page, and then a lot is just like kind of improv. I don't like the idea of improving a whole campaign. I don't like the idea of improving dungeons. But I'm fairly comfortable just improving moment-to-moment pieces like that. So, if I could get Storm King's Thunder and just have the dungeon maps and you know all the maps and just like an outline, maybe that would be better. Hard to say. Hard to say, but yeah, I mean, I'll try to read through at least the first. If I can just go chapter by chapter, and then there's also some like supplements that people recommend. People that have run Storm King's Thunder a bunch, and they've put together like supplementary documents for like each of the chapters of like notes of like, hey, instead of doing it like how it says in the book, you should do this instead and add this in here or change this to this. And it's like, okay, that's pretty helpful. Because it's not like a highly lauded campaign or anything. And there's various complaints, but one complaint was one of the chapters is very open-ended, very free-form. And so the most common suggestion I saw was to just pick like a few different locations or a few different encounters and just kind of sort of push your players towards those things specifically, rather than laying out every last one of their possible options and letting them kind of meander and hope they eventually find out the goal of the chapter. And I think for my group especially, that's a very good idea. So I think we're actually going to be starting that on Tuesday. We're going to make level 1 13th age characters. I'm not going to make them for them. I probably should. But I don't have a form fillable character sheet for 2nd edition. Which is wild. And my handwriting is terrible. They won't like it. So there isn't really a good option here. I could just print up like a page that has all their information and then they could just copy it themselves to their character sheet. I guess I could do that. But instead, I'm just kind of printing out all the class information. Which the classes section of the 2nd E rulebook is like 135 pages. It's pretty significant. Because it's kind of like 4th edition, where every class has like abilities, you know? Every class has maneuvers or something like that to make it interesting and give you options during combat. So, the wizard, the sorcerer sections are obviously the longest, but even the fighter has a good 7 pages or something. Yeah, so I'll have that next week to talk about and see how it goes. Running Chapter 1 of Storm King's Thunder with 13th Age. I think it'll go pretty well, but I mean, between character creation and how lengthy some battles can be, we probably won't actually get that far into the campaign. We'll see. Alright, so more Dominions this week, of course, and more, well, the rest of Convergence, which I think is like 1 video, and then maybe some more RimWorld or something else. And on the Exploring series, 4612, Not All Gods Decompose. Of the Hecaton Kyries cycle. But for now, my name is Mangg. This has been Hanging with Mangg. And I'll see you fine folks next week.